Stream. Agora tenho que fazer 25.
Vamos a todos streamar a menos.
Uhum.
Bom, patrão.
Agora estou lembrando dois outra vez, não é? E 7600 de dano. Ai!
Estourada.
Pá, até 19 kills, até matei. Bué, tipo para. Nem foi assim tanto dano. Foda-se, 19, mano. Eu fui sacar bué de kills, mano. À toa.
As minhas, claro.
Tive
As
9
meninas
assists.
de, sei lá, 10 eram minhas.
Só tive 9 assists. Ah, porque tu dias 10, já. Ai, tá. Não é mérito nenhum, é expansion. Always improvement.
Check your weapons, check your gear. We're holding for deployment.
Não, é o Rusty é 19 também. Mas tinha sido no PC, por isso tipo. Está fixe, ok, já bati o.
Enemies are dropping into the area. Watch the skies.
Mano, em 3 semanas, não, 2 semanas e tal, sei lá. Mano, isto é um broken, jogado sem aim assist, aim training, é como os mesmos princípios do que no PC. Só que aqui tens uns cheatzinhos, tipo. Porque treinas sem aim assist, claro que é muito mais difícil do que mirar no rato, mas tipo, tentas ficar o melhor possível no joystick. Mano, esquece, metes aim assist, mano, isto é um potencial eficiente, mano. My god, the aim reaction.
My god mesmo.
My god mesmo.
Enemy soldier incoming.
Não está tanto no close, no aquecimento.
Até porque acreditas, é o filme.
Aqui tem menos preocupação.
Ah, exato, não tens que controlar todas as emissões. Tens que? Ah,
Dropping into the area. Watch the skies.
Aí estás a ganhar.
Exatamente, pois.
All stations, we are green to go. Stand by for deployment.
É rápido.
É,
Não é? Fica apanhado à controle. Que maneirinha.
FIFA.
Let's go at quarters. You have mic, bro?
Survive to redeploy fallen teammates. Kill,
Yo,
bring them back
Marina.
fast.
Mano, ninguém
Gotta love a good entry. Alright, let's move.
Ah, pois foi ali, próprio, né?
Supply drones online. Shut them down.
I cracked one.
Outro crack. Fica outro aqui.
Oh, caga nisso.
Era só para ganhar assim,
Já. Distraction.
Marking the rest of that squad on your tac map. Go get hunted. Down and out. Hell of a job. Enemy buy station deployed.
Olha ali, são dois.
Hostile contact.
Morto.
Into the AO. Marked remaining operators from that squad.
No, roof.
Target is active.
Não pode ser. Não, estou no telhado.
Hostile Guardian has been deployed.
One is on the fucking... Oh man, he's here. Está um coisa dessa picha. One is down
Resurging. Go get your revenge. Gas is moving.
Não, mano, eu joguei essa
On me, bro. Fucking... a jogar neste telhado, mano, deve portas, é tão querido. Está aí um a mirar o chão. Eles jogam bué da escala, faz sempre o bait da escala.
You got reinforcements inbound. Time for vengeance. You're redeploying.
Let's move. Let's go, what? Go factory. Or low prison.
Moving to my mark.
Enemy soldier incoming. Loadout drop headed your way.
One guy is here.
We located the rest of them.
Veja, matou-se.
Bounty targets marked. Kill them all.
Moving here.
I'm pushing the boat.
Estava aqui em cima.
Ai, kill os dois, matei os dois, mano.
Então,
Broke your leg, dude.
Good kill.
Yeah.
Marking the rest of that squad on your
Mano, eu
attack map.
parti um e depois parti o outro. Tipo, só fui para a frente e para trás. Agora simples, mas... Esquece, mano, é muito pequeno. Oh, in the building in front, man. Ui, eles tinham apanhou-me na rua, mas não estou. Foda-se. Dude, you are so bad, man. Olha o que é que foda-se, como é que está a olhar para o chão, mano? Para o chão, mano. What is the connection? Oh. Que servidor. Este load infinito que não aparecia. Só tem-se matar com as armas do chão. Do chão.
Any way you can try to find it, whether it's just holding the door open for somebody. If you see an elderly person coming out of a restaurant, helping them to their car, you know, whatever it is, just find a way to be all in the positive mindset, always looking to assist and be of service to others. That's going to put you in a high frequency mind state automatically. Okay? Automatically. The next thing is, I try to eat clean. Eat healthy, positive vibe food. Try not to eat negative vibe food. Try to stay away from food that's been tortured, because that tortured energy is now going to enter into your body. Remember, when you're eating that food, there's DNA in the food, and that DNA carries memories. Like I've said before in many videos here, and it's been scientifically proven that DNA stores memories. It's not even a mystery. It's peer-reviewed science. It's real science, guys. Microsoft has created the first DNA hard drive. 1 gram of DNA can store 700 terabytes of data, and now they've maximized that to 433 petabytes of data on 1 gram. A human body can store 13.5 billion years of information in digital bits of information that can be uploaded and downloaded from computers. Okay, yeah. So guys, really important. Try to stay away from tortured meat. Tortured meat, tortured food can lead to adding inadvertently negativity into your body, and you won't even know it's there. You won't even know it's happening and why things are not going right. It's because of that negative vibe. So if you love to eat meat or like to eat meat, if you're trying to manifest something, you may want to take a break from that for a little while during the manifestation process.
Check your gear and weapons. We'll be
Just
deployed
recommendation.
shortly.
You're looking for the maximum results. It's not about being a vegan and all this other stuff. It's about trying to achieve the goal. And I'm telling you the steps you need to take. Whether you like them or not, that's up to you. Okay? The next step that you're going to need to take is you've got the high frequency vibration. You're not eating any
Enemy
tortured
soldier incoming.
food. So now you're maintaining that positive energy in your body that you've already been created through positive karma, and nothing is there to tear it down. No outside forces can come in and destroy the energy flow that you're building up now to help towards this manifestation. The next thing is you need to be extremely specific with what you are trying to manifest. And I mean
Enemies are
extremely,
dropping into the
extremely
area. Watch the
specific.
skies.
I was talking to a guy the other day, and he was telling me that, hey man, I'm having trouble manifesting this vehicle that I need. My other car is about to literally die. I need a new car, and I'm trying to find a car. And I've been thinking about it, but nothing's happening. So I started going over the manifestation process with him like I'm doing with you guys now, and I got to this point, and I said, okay, tell me about the car. What kind of car is it? He goes, oh, well, you know, I don't really know yet. Something in the $20,000 to $25,000 range, something that's really affordable that I can get around in. I said, I know, yeah, okay, that's fine. I need to know specifically the year, the make, the model, the color, the interior, dashboard, the steering wheel. What kind of sound system is it going to have? Does it play CDs and DVDs, or is it just MP3s? Does it have an aux button in it? What type of wheels? What size rims? You know, I need all this information. He goes, wow. I said, yeah. You got to be specific, extremely, extremely specific, or it's not going to be able to get the best results. You can't just be like, oh yeah, I want a car. Well, there's thousands of cars out there. The universe needs you to be extremely specific. Your energy needs to be on point and focused to.
Okay, let's
Surviving your
go.
team can redeploy. Eliminate targets to bring them back faster.
Right here. Oh, vi vai molto più.
Got enemy fighter on track. Let's blind them.
People dropping on the way station, I think.
All right. Swarm's
Nice.
done for. Contract's complete.
Let's go by station. Yeah, he's pushing us. Inside. Nice.
Enemies dropping into the AO.
Another dropping.
Got the cat.
Mark the target.
10 HP one. That's my load. Oh, continue. Okay. Oh, ma non è preso, prestatino, mano.
Get back up there, yep.
What the fuck? Ou era de ângulos diferentes, já.
Fora de merdas, uma meio que dano de 4, mano.
Esta casa é muito reta, até pouco cover. Ali em baixo, que é foda.
Mesmo fora, não sei se estava um e 3 de fora. Acho que era isso.
Não se meteu 17 de dano, 72. Acontece aos melhores.
A bottleneck to where it's going boom right to the exact thing you're looking for. Okay, you got to be specific. So I said, look, you need
No início, mano. Ixi, menos 70, menos 60.
Eu fumo um cigarro antes, durante e depois.
Antes e depois.
you need to find out the year, the make, the model, the color. You need to go test drive these cars, figure out the one that you exactly want. When you get that one, take pictures of inside, outside, under the hood. Take all the notes on the vehicle, read the vehicle description, print that out, take a copy for yourself, and read through that vehicle.
Yo, what's up, boys? In today's video, if you guys didn't know, they brought back an 8-bit bundle, and for those who like remember 8-bit movement back in the day, and that's like one of the videos that actually made me famous today, or like blew me up, you know what I'm saying? Like got like a 500,000 views right now. But I just want to like recreate it, show it some love, considering it just gave me an idea, you know what I'm saying? But with that being said, I got 3 high kill gameplays for you guys to watch in today's video, and if you follow. Turns out my recording was on only 5,000 bitrate. So now I have to get another one. Where are you going, little bro?
Check your weapons, check your gear. We're holding for deployment. Enemy soldier incoming. Enemies are dropping into the area. Watch the skies. Marking the rest of that squad on your deck. Mark remaining operators from that squad. Hunt them down.
I'm gonna bust you harder. What are you doing?
Enemies dropping into the AO.
Oh my god, get the... Dude, fuck off! Like, fucking Call of Duty windows are so fucking annoying. Like, damn, the hardest obstacle in life is to get to a fucking Call of Duty window, bro. Irritating.
Hunt down the rest of them.
Como é que ficas down, mano?
Como é que é?
Ficas down?
Como assim?
Posso te dizer, mano. Não ficaste dentro.
Yeah, what the?
All
Ah,
stations,
yeah,
this is
fiquei
Shadow
wrong, man.
01.
Ah,
Deployment
porque
to
está
the
tipo
war
no
zone
Team
has been
Squads.
authorized.
Já sei.
Já.
Não dá para tudo.
Mas agora não foi, né? Vou parar lá e eu agora. Top 155.
It really is all annoying. Come here, motherfucker.
That squad on your attack map. Get hunting. Target down. Marking the rest of them.
I want my fucking specialist, bro.
Confirmed, and we located the rest of them. Enemy soldier incoming. Kill.
Bro's literally hiding in a group of dead bodies.
Be advised. Remaining operators from that squad. Marking the rest of that squad on your tac map. Go get hunting. Enemy destroyed. Use your tac map to put down the rest of them.
That's a team wipe. I don't know what it is, but I cannot aim with a sniper right now. I literally cannot aim with snipers.
Gear up fast. We're about to get evil. Target down. Marking the rest of them.
So fucking cringe.
Enemy soldier incoming. Enemies are dropping into the area. Watch the skies. All stations, we are green to go. Stand by for deployment.
Okay, let's go. Man.
Vocês virem aqui com.
I'll put this facility.
Resurgence.
Yo,
Stay
Narco,
alive
are
and
you
keep
there,
your
bro?
squad in fight.
I can hear myself twice.
Your team leaders. And a drop point for your squad. So all right, we got you started. You finished the job. Enemies dropping into the AO. Seeing a swarm of spy drones down there. Clear.
Enemies deploy the counter UAV.
What the fuck?
Temos dois pessoal que estão lá, mano.
Hostile Guardian is active.
Vou fazer do pessoal já. E agora a nossa.
Estão na volta, foram à volta.
Allies, that's what I like to see.
Estão on the zip.
Nós temos o UAV.
Let's buy. Oh yeah, we can buy here.
Hostile counter UAV overhead.
So
Enemies
far,
deploy the counter UAV.
people dropping camping. I downed one.
Fica visto?
Visual on the
kinda
target.
can.
Breaking
E tem.
Tá outro, é, forte.
Tem um motor.
É.
Não está.
Located the rest of them.
Já.
Look at the ground. Move it. Good kill. Marking the rest of that squad on your attack map. Go get
Bem bom tudo, mano.
Hostile counter UAV.
Kill confirmed, and we located the rest of them.
I down one there. I'm going to push here, right, guys.
Alright, your squad's in the safe zone. Marking the rest of that squad on your attack map. Get hunting.
Mano. Esperando ver todos. Só ver aqui.
Squad mates back on station. Good work. Down to you, soldier. Stay sharp. You've got reinforcements inbound. Be advised, enemies deployed a buy station. Counter UAV online. They're blind. Friendly loadout drops on the way.
On the road.
Enemy buy station incoming.
Tenho mais ou menos. Ai, eles estão a dar cross.
Hostile Guardian have been destroyed.
Calma da gente ali. Da vida. Os dois já 10 de vida, puta! Ai, mano, esse sorte teve. Como é que me ouviu? Oi!
You're getting another chance. Make it count.
Está outro onde eu morri, Ah, outro está dentro aqui fora, por dentro. Falhou o tiro! Está outro dentro. Tens smoke? Ele tem smoke aqui no corpo. Não estou a ouvir o outro. Mas sei que é linda, não? Ei, é da factory, estou em cima. Acho que eu vou buscar.
Aqui vai.
Oh, mano, foda-se, não pode, filha da... Como, mano? Eu estava aqui... Ei, não... Ei, olha que bote, mano. Oh, meu Deus. Esse teammate, mano.
Eu disse ainda. E ele vai para ouvir, caralho.
Ah,
Para ouvir.
Gas is closing in.
não vou ver nada, caralho.
Está a ficar, tá?
Não sei, não está, mas parece. Está lá à nossa espera,
You're
não
back on
é?
station. Go get after it.
Eu vou logo, não sei.
Estava aí só no último vídeo.
All squad members are in the safe zone. Enemy soldier.
São 3 na casa principal. Mano. Estou a puxar? Estão a puxar. Puxaram, foda-se! Peraí, eu tenho um smoke de boa para trás. Este filho da puta. They know you are dead, bro.
Não, foi outro sítio.
Get ready. You're redeploying.
Vai ser logo, não
Fire sale active. Buy
Vamos ver
station
se está
prices have been
Vamos
reduced.
pelo prison, vou aqui no prison a ver. Ora, está pessoal lá em baixo, dude. Isso não teve a ver, Ei, vai no gajo, dude.
Top 25 was up. Failure
Essa
ain't
logo,
fatal.
tá.
Just an opportunity to do better.
A famosinha.
Caralho, vá. Sozinha agora.
Veja 900 de dano, da Goat.
Find cover.
Fire sale is ended. Buy station prices are adjusted. Confirmed. Located the rest of them. Mark the rest of that squad on your attack map. Go get hunting.
Oh, fucking windows, man.
Confirmed, and we located the rest of them. Kill. Marking the rest of that squad on your attack map.
O Jorge falou do meu para citar. Ah, estive a ver, mano, não sei.
Located the rest of them.
Queram o quê?
Eram antigos.
Ah, pois, eu vi o do Swag, o que ele estava a dizer. Mas é só uma react do Swag, não é tipo.
Marking the rest of them.
Dizer, ah, parece que está cheatado, não sei o quê.
Não sabia quem era esse pai. Se tivesse visto
Be advised. No longer
Não, não
active.
sabia. É o Face Swag, ainda tipo a ver aquele filme. Futebol, yeah. Só que lá está o Face e o vídeo, não sei. Tipo, lá está a cena é essa, o pessoal diz que está a cheatar, tipo, bem, dizem com uma clareza, tipo, parece que é mesmo óbvio, tipo, mano, quanto mais paras para pensar e ver que o pessoal vão a jogar, menos parece que está a cheatar, tá vendo? Pois é parecer, não é como se tipo, mano, estás a ver o programa do gajo, oh, caralho. Tipo, eu, mano.
Mas melhor. É tipo a combinação deste com este.
Oh, mano, a cena perfeita é, imagina, quase toda a gente já recebeu aquele que, tipo, já estava a dizer não sei o que, quando dizem que parece que estou a cheatar ou isso, para ver que dizem, cheater. Tipo, mano, se o pessoal acha, se alguém já te chamou cheater uma vez e tu sendo um player tipo average, estás a ver? Mano, pessoal muito bom ou pro players é o quê? Claro que toda a gente vai dizer que estão a cheatar, mano. Tipo, se o pessoal normal diz que tu cheatas, tipo, de vez em quando, com uma play tipo Peace Soccer, ou tipo uma killzinha fixe, sei lá. Agora o pessoal que imagina matar 30 por jogo, mano. 40 e o caralho, 50 o saxo, mano. Tipo, quantas vezes mataste 50, não é? O pessoal que está cheatado. Quantas vezes mataste 20, não é? Tipo, researchers, não é fácil. Tem uma discrepância de skill gigante, é só isso. Uma criança então também vai pensar que os seres humanos estão a cheatar, tipo, olha estes gajos a comunicar e fazem gente merda.
Eu tenho aqui que o pessoal do Jorge pegou a cheatar X
Aham. Não, mas eles até admitiram
Oh
que
my
eu não sei
God,
quem é
that
porque
is
os jogos estão
fucking
sempre a
crazy
dizer.
work.
Eu também. Eu não sei quem foi.
Não sei, eu no outro dia joguei com os jogos de não sei quem, fácil.
O Xuxa, o caralho. Há o Nick, é o Raimundo, o caralho. Oh, estou a ver aqui o último vídeo do Saxon, mano, 45 kills, mano, win. Tipo em... Mano, o gajo dá um para 3, tipo como quem bebe água, mano. Claro, tipo... Parece estar cheatado, pá. Não
I'm
está, tipo,
honestly
mano,
the
ele tem
fucking best.
controle
I'm honestly
do
the fucking
joystick,
best.
tipo, absurdo.
No
Tipo, é
cap,
isso.
I'm the best.
No cap on the best. Não se me acredita que é o
Easiest
melhor, é o
1v4
caralho,
of my life.
mano. Pois é...
Easiest 1v4 of my life, bro. Easiest 1v4 of my life, bro.
One before.
Oh my god. Man, I wish I could have done like montages. Did that guy just break his legs? Oh my goodness. Nah, but I wish I could have done a montage, but honestly, I just didn't have time. But I'm glad I got to bring back some memories with the title and shit.
Enemies dropping into the AO. Kill. That squad on your attack map. Get hunting. Deploying mosquito.
Oh man, I like the iron sight for this though. I had to switch my controller out, bro. My other controller was making me dolphin dive for no reason. Bro, so annoying.
Hostile Guardian has been deployed.
Oh my god, I got out of there.
Dropping into the area. Watch the skies.
Hostile Mosquito is online.
I'm so not used to this dead zone. Like this controller is way different than another one. It's like every controller is like different, even though it's the exact same controller.
Marked remaining operators from that squad.
Yeah, it's like my left stick is sensitive as shit.
You're
Like
losing
my left
ground.
stick dead zone is like.
Located the rest of them.
What the?
Enemy soldier incoming.
Yo, I ain't gonna lie, bro. This iron sight is fun to use. Oh baby,
Confirmed, and we located the rest
and
of them.
it's my first game on, by the way. I'm pretty ass.
Enemies dropping into the area. Watch the skies.
No, dude, I actually like can't snipe. I think it's my left stick dead zone.
Confirmed. We located the rest of them.
Like my left stick dead zone is just fucking. It's just like ass now. The other day, cause I slammed it. I got mad and slammed my controller. Why would you reach out at? Like that was so
Marking
dumb.
the rest of that squad on your attack map. Go get hunting.
This guy's a fucking bro. Is not Thor. Why the fuck this guy got a hammer?
Marking the rest of them.
Fucking weirdo.
Kill. Marking the rest of that squad on your attack map. Go get hunting.
It's a different team.
Confirmed.
That's a different team right there.
Located the rest of them. closing in.
I mean, bro, how the fuck do you... Sometimes I just don't get this shit. Like, you aimbotted me. And how did you hit every shot? I'm so confused. I'm finna get third party by every fucking angle. Bro, one thing about me is, like, I'm always the one that gets third party. There'll be 20 people right here and they'll all just start shooting at me.
Enemies are dropping into the area. Remaining operators from that squad. Hunt them down. Destroyed. Attack map to hunt down the rest of them.
Also, like, in it. I don't know how to explain it. Dude, oh my god.
That squad. Hunt them
What a
down.
whole ass team shit.
Resurgence has been deactivated. This is the end game. Got gas moving in.
The professional hand holders right here. But somehow, I caught them.
What's up, everyone? Hope you're doing well. Today we're going to give you the top 10 look. And we, of course, was just broken when it first came out. We've got a bunch of loadouts for you. Anyway, reload the like button's ammo, fire one shot, then immediately reload again because we're COD players. That's what we do. Then hit that noti bell and hit that subscribe button because like 80% of people who are watching these videos, that means you right now are not subscribed. So hit the subscribe button. Helps me out, helps the channel out, and I'm here to help you out. So it's a win for everybody. We got a quick word from our sponsors, and we'll give you all of these loadouts right now. Today's video is sponsored by our friends over at Prize Picks. Prize Picks is America's #1 daily fantasy sports app with over 3 million members. And if you're like me and you love sports and you love esports, you can now win up to 25 times your money on making esports lineups on Prize Picks. So download Prize Picks today, use code MARVEL, and get up to $100 matched on your first deposit. Or just click the link down below in the description of this video. Thank you again to the team over at Prize Picks for sponsoring today's video. Let's get into it. So with the first set of loadouts, this is more of a bonus loadout right here, kind of a honorable mention, if you will. Is the MTZ-762, which did get a pretty solid buff this past update. And then, of course, we have the WSP Swarm Akimbo style, which they're just really, really fun and just for sharing with your friends and kind of trolling if you want to a little bit. But these are really, really solid. I'm enjoying them quite a bit. With this MTZ-762, we got the Zimmer compensated muzzle. I like this precision Blackthorn barrel. The 30 round mag, that's as big as it goes, but don't worry, it hits. And then the Jack glassless optic, along with the EXF close quarters assault stock. I'll show this to you here in the firing range. But and it doesn't have a ton of recoil, and with that 30 round mag you still have 5 rounds left, so it definitely hits hard. Then with these WSP Swarms, we're going with the Wrathguard Compensator S muzzle, the Hipshot L20 laser, the high velo rounds. I like the 50 round mag here, and of course we've got the Akimbo brace stock. So these two are in the firing range, but these things are a lot of fun to run. You're not going to probably run it too much out there, so I wouldn't even worry about that. I'm not good with them out there, but you're looking at 10 meters right here. A lot of fun to run. Just boom, easy. style of build along with the Car 98. The Car 98 is still very, very good. It can still, I think, 2-shot to the body up to 55 meters, and it can 1-shot to the head at 55 meters. So keep that in mind. For this MCW, we're rocking the Chimera Silent Shot Integral Barrel. Then we have the DR6 Handstop Underbarrel along with the Blackout High Grain rounds. I'm running the 40-round mag here, and then you want to attach that Jack Raven kit. And we'll show this to you here in the firing range, but this thing is insanely good. They just keep buffing the MCW too, which is really, really nice. Now, they're not buffing the conversion kit, but the conversion kit has always felt good. Sonic's 80 stop quick. That's just my preference, but if you want to go with the other scope or the on my list when it comes to SMG style builds, I love the BP50, and then of course the SVA 545, probably number 2 overall when it comes to long range loadouts. When it comes to ARs, SVA is just, the tap on the SVA is just still so broken, and they haven't fixed it yet, and I'm not real sure why. For this BP50, we're going with the Cassis brake muzzle. I'm rocking the Chimera laser light here, the TRST grip tape rear grip, the high grain rounds here, and the Revenger kit. So this to you here in the firing range. Again, this thing just not a lot of recoil at all. It feels really, really solid. Very quick too. As far as the movement speed goes, it's very, very solid. Again, it's fun, man. For the SVA, we're going with the Sonic Suppressor, the STV Precision Barrel, the high grain rounds here, the 60-round mag, and the Jack Class Optic. And we're going to put that on single fire and just keep tapping, man. It's just doesn't move, dude. Next up, we have the SOA Subverter. This SOA Subverter is very, very solid, especially when it comes to Rebirth Island and smaller maps. And then I've got this paired with the Lockman Shroud. I think Lockman
Yeah.
Olha que fixe, jogou de comando, olha. Olha, man, look at this. Eu e tu, e nós vamos ao coração de melão. Gonna take a shower.
Foda-se, mano.
Então,
Quando eu receber o
Today,
primeiro
we're gonna-
payout de 10k, vou comprar logo a Trading View.
porquê?
É muito mais OP, mano. Aquela cena do. Que eu te mandei um vídeo até. Do gráfico.
Mandaste onde? O TikTok?
Para o Discord uma vez. Do gráfico de Future.
Ah, já sei.
Primeiro
Ok.
para isso.
Yeah.
E segundo por tens time frames de segundos.
Segundos.
Um minuto. Tens
Ok.
infinitos time frames, estás a ver?
Podes mudar, eu já vi um gajo a mudar, tipo, ele mete o que quer.
Não podes pôr 10 minutos, por exemplo.
Assim, não podes pôr 10 minutos.
Não podes. Só podes 5 ou 15. Tipo, só é uma
Ah,
perspectiva diferente.
pois, ok. Mas tipo, podes pôr 12
No
minutos?
2 não podes. Não, acho que não também.
Não, mas se for pago.
Ah, sim.
Pois é isso que eu estou a dizer.
Mas estás a ver 2 minutos não podes. E para a cena da ICT que tira liquidation e entrar em inverse fair value.
Uhum. Os de segundos.
É muito OP de segundos, claro, mano.
Uhum.
É mesmo, ui, Jesus, aí é que você se sniper, mano. Pois, é por isso que o boy salva a estrutura, melhor ainda do que eu. E tem a coisa pago. Ele vem em segundos, normalmente.
Ele quem? É o ICT?
O boy, estás a ver? Estou a dizer.
Ah, ok.
Esse gajo eu penso sempre merdas em segundos, claro, mano. E agora estou a ver aqui outro também. Está a jogar nos segundos. E é bué claro, eu aqui já entrava melhor do que ele até. Mano.
Mas depois os segundos não é fractal igual, tipo, não dá para meter boas entries no minuto
Mas
também.
imagina para ir logo ao pico mais baixo, estás a ver, para saberes mesmo o que é reverse. Isso. Porque no de 5 minutos às vezes estás à espera de um break-off strike, ainda não aconteceu, depois acontece e já não volta lá abaixo. Depois tens de esperar a moeda para entrar no outro trade, não é? Que aquilo já está.
Até mas o do minuto não é fixe, tipo, já?
Mas o de segundos ainda é mais.
Ok.
Porque estás a ver, no de 1 minuto onde dá um leak e volta para trás, no de segundos tu aí tens fair values e inverse fair
Pois,
values.
já, ok, aham. Descobri.
Estás a ver, no de segundos, podes ir a 1 segundo não tens leaks, é próximo. É para quebra.
Yeah, é outra perspectiva.
Yeah.
Agora sei lá qual é que é o melhor time frame, tipo, são todos valiosos.
Pois, mas são valiosas se tu puderes usar todas.
Either make or break your trading. And you're probably making a few fatal mistakes that is compromising your setup, so let me help you. I've been trading ICT concepts and trading daily as the foundation. If you're taking a trade, one of these should be the reason for why you were taking them. You are either hunting liquidity, you are targeting price to rebalance to an inefficiency, you are targeting for price to rebalance to equilibrium. Keep that in mind. So let's jump into the charts now. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to do a replay system on TradingView, and I'm just going to pick a random point in time, scrunch up the chart, so you guys know I'm not cheating, and we could go from there and talk about daily buys. So the first thing that we're going to do when it comes to daily buys is we want to do just a simple top-down analysis. Start at the weekly time frame, draw our buy side, sell side, where's the market drawing towards, and do we think on the bigger time frame, and then slowly work down to figure out the internal draw as well. So we're going to go over here. I'm going to go to the weekly time frame, and I'm going to say, hey, buy side to the left of us just got taken. So this could possibly be something that's bearish, but one thing that you have to keep in mind as well
E aí é que vai dar para fazer scalping.
Oh,
E aí quando
em
tudo
segundo.
200 paus em 3 minutos.
is once this buy side level gets taken, the only way for me to be bearish and for me to think that price is going back to these areas is for us to get displacement through a swing low. This move here does not mean anything. We could immediately reverse back higher because this daily fair value gap to the left of us is still continuing to hold bullish order flow, right? So keep that in mind. Now let's zoom into the daily. And looking at this chart, I want you to just take 5 seconds and just have an overall idea. Do you think that market right now is bullish or do you think we are bearish? Take the next couple seconds. Now, looking at this chart for me, I would be extremely bullish. Now, why is that? Market ended up coming up, had some accumulation. At these highs, we're continuing to generate buy-side liquidity. We have relative equal highs, as well as all of these swing highs that we leave along the way to the downside. We end up selling. These internal lows get taken. Sell side has now been taken, as well as we are holding the daily fair value gap. So again, any move that you see in the market, there's a reason for why it's happening. Again, there's 4 reasons why markets move. What are we doing here? Well, when we sell off, we're going to hunt some form of sell side liquidity. We're also rebalancing to an inefficiency on the bigger time frame. Now, once those have both happened and we hold the order flow, meaning we are holding the bigger time frame fair value gap, there's not displacement on the bigger time frame, so there's no reason for us to be bearish after the buy side was taken. So now I'm looking at this internal price action, and this is when you start applying other concepts from ICT, like market maker models, which I'll leave in the description that you can go check out. Because the way that I'm going to look at view at this is just by looking at the daily, I'm going to be expecting buy side of the curve when it comes to a market maker model, and we're going to start to work our way up to this buy side level. So now, have a good understanding. We're on a daily, so now my goal is to find out where is the daily candle expanding to. So now, first thing I'm going to look at is sell side been taken, we had to move up, rebalance, and then we're starting to actually displace through this swing high. So now I'm extremely bullish in what I want to face through this swing high. So now I'm extremely bullish in what place through this swing high. So now I'm extremely bullish. And what I want to notice is there's two fair value gaps here. There's a daily fair value gap right here, and there's also a daily fair value gap right here that we are currently in. So now, what am I expecting? Well, I'm expecting internal range to external range, meaning this imbalance most likely holds, and we see an expansion towards the external drop, which is going to be buy side. So now, what I want to do is I want to zoom in. First thing I'm going to do is I want to notice where is price most likely to bounce. So if I'm going into a day,
É no vídeo fixe, mas tens a ver até ao fim.
Então se vai mandar. Mas tu não tinhas mandado para o Discord? Tu é que tinhas dito. Tens mandado uma vez para o Discord. Mas no grupo não está nada. Não mandaste. Ah, making to. Pois é esse gajo que eu disse no outro dia, o Justin Werlen, yeah. Eu andei bem bem desse gajo. O que mandaste. Yeah, o que mandaste. Esse vídeo, yeah, pois exatamente. Ok, mandaste agora mesmo. Não sei se vi este vídeo, mas anda bem bem desse gajo.
yes,
É entertainment, tipo. Muitas das vezes apetece-me ver trading, mas não tão sério quanto o ICT, estás a ver?
Ah, pois,
O
já,
ICT
já.
eu quero ver quando eu estou com foco e com vontade de escrever, etc. Mas
Ok.
eu gosto de estar, não é, rodeado a trading,
Outra
para aprender
perspectiva, já.
mais. Eu aqui tranquilinho, eu também tiro os insights fixes, estás a ver?
Aham, eu gosto deste gajo, dá para outros dele.
Yeah.
Ele diz-se que é observador e eu caralho. E fala bem, tipo, e explica bem os conceitos, tipo, parece que integrou bem as cenas.
Yeah.
Parece legit overall.
and this is what I'm looking at on 4 hours.
Oh,
Sim.
eu estava a ver um vídeo ICT Daily Bias dele.
And I say, okay, my daily bias is bullish because I think on the bigger time frame we're expanding to this high, but what has to happen first before that can happen? Well, currently we just had a big expansion move. There's a possibility for us to retrace. We have a 4-hour fair value gap right here. We could come back down to this and then continue higher. I need to see more internal price action to recognize when price wants to move, because that's the most important thing when it comes to daily bias. It doesn't matter if you have a bias. It doesn't matter if you're bullish or if you're bearish. It matters when the market is actually going to go draw towards those areas. So when I'm looking at a 4-hour, I want to wait to see how price reacts. So we zoom in, and I can say, hey, this looks really, really nice. This daily fair value gap is continuing to hold bullish. We just came down and swept this recent low to the left of us. And again, I'm doing the exact same thing as I normally would. We got nice displacement, pull back to a fair value gap. If this continues to hold, I could expect to see it move up. So now I'm aligning the external draw with the internal draw. I want to make this clear that you understand this. When I zoom out to the daily, I'm recognizing, number one, this overall model is extremely bullish. Sell side has been taken. The bigger time frame for value gap has held bullish. We're bouncing to the upside. We've had displacement through this swing high. And now this daily for value gap is starting to hold. So what do I expect? I expect internal range to external range, meaning this for value gap holds and we work our way back to the upside in favor of the external draw being buy side. So when we zoom in and we have a daily bias being bullish, I'm looking for a bullish entry model. What do I need to see to be bullish? The exact same thing. I want to recognize manipulation. Where's sell side resting? Where's the displacement happening? So what happens is sell side to the left of us gets taken. We get a lot of displacement back inside that range. We pull back to this inefficiency, back to equilibrium. What do I expect to see here? I expect to see this fair value gap continue to hold bullish and to see an expansion to the upside. Now this is currently in the overnight session. New York doesn't open until later. I'm going to go to a bigger time frame so we can actually see more of what's going on. Fair value gap still continues to hold. Should see an expansion to the high. There you go. So, but hopefully you're starting to connect the dots when it comes to aligning the internal draw with the external draw, and it comes to finding the daily bias. So now I'm going to continue to let the market play out, and let's just continue to figure out what to do, right? So now, new day happens, right? Boom, new day opens. I'm going to say, okay, I'm going to actually go, let's say, I'm going to close my eyes, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay, 5 candles, boom. New bias, new day. What's my daily bias? Okay, well, buy side just got taken, so now I want to be hesitant to be taking longs because most of the time, we're probably going to be having less efficient price action when the buy side is taken. Why do you think that is? Is because there's no reason for price to move higher now. When we are in this range, we are drawing towards areas of liquidity, right? The 4 reasons why markets move. We're either hunting liquidity, rebalancing the inefficiencies, rebalancing the equilibrium, right? Or generating liquidity. What do you think we were doing right here? This is generating liquidity. When we zoom out, on the way to the downside, we are generating all of this buy side liquidity. All of these resting highs that we leave along the way to the downside is areas of buy side liquidity that we are going to eventually come back to and run all at once. That is the reason why it's called low resistance liquidity run, because when we come back to it, we run it all at once. It's not like we take one little high and then sell back off. We take all of it at once. Now, daily bias, boom, this is what we're looking at. So now, first thing I want to notice is if the daily doesn't give me a good understanding of where we want to expand to. Right now, when I look at this, it doesn't give me a good idea of where we want to expand to because we've already held the daily fair value gap. We've kind of gone some momentum to the upside, but now this candle's starting to figure out what it wants to do.
Fuck.
So this is when I zoom in and I recognize what the internal price is.
Absurdamente absurda agora. Ai, Jesus. What? Fundo de 15 minutos, 2%, ou parecia mais, que puta. Que candle.
We're going to talk about how to unlock 100% of your motivation. The frustrating thing about life is that we know if we can get this person to actually put forth 100% of our effort instead of half-assing it, we would do awesome. And we know that it's theoretically possible because there are tasks in your life where you've been able to give it your all. And when you give it your all, things turn out so well. The problem, though, is that as we look at the tasks in our life, like maybe I have this project for work, I have to do something for school, or my brother's birthday is coming up, whatever the task is, we just can't put forth 100% effort. And in those moments, if you're like me, you start to wonder, what would my life be like if I could actually put forth all of my effort all of the time? I'm super excited about this topic because this is one of those cases where everything that I've invested in seemed to click. So my years of studying to become a monk or doing neuroscience research at Harvard, or even years of clinical practice. Because the problem with motivation is that it's quite multidisciplinary. We can sort of look at the neuroscience of it, we can discover particular things. But how do we translate that down into what you do today? And so that's exactly what we're going to teach you. And we're going to weave together some aspects of neuroscience, some aspects of clinical practice, i.e. working with people to get them more motivated. And lastly, we're going to understand sort of this yogic or Eastern perspective to help you really unlock motivation. Hey y'all, if you're interested in applying some of the principles that we share to actually create change in your life, check out Dr. K's Guide to Mental Health. It combines over 2 decades of my experience of both being a monk and a psychiatrist, and distills all of the most important things I've learned into a choose-your-own-adventure format. So check out the link in the bio and start your journey today. So let's start by understanding the experience of 100% effort. So when you are in a situation where you're putting forth 100% effort, what are you feeling like? What's your internal experience? So the first thing is that emotionally, usually your emotions are aligned with the task, right? So this doesn't even necessarily mean good emotion. So if you're really pissed off at someone and you're like, I'm going to teach this person a lesson, your anger is in alignment with yourself. Oftentimes this also means that, or in other situations, you're excited, right? Or you're curious about something. Oh, I really want to learn about something. So there's an alignment of emotions with the task. That's number one. The second thing is that your energy level is pretty good, right? So when you want to do something, your energy level is good. Like you're putting forth 100% effort, which means you've got enough energy to sustain the effort. Now let's look at the alternate scenario where you don't want to put forth 100% effort. What are the most common experiences within your mind and your body? So number one thing that a lot of people will say to themselves is, I don't feel like it. I just don't have the energy today. So if we sort of look at a lack of 100% effort, what we're talking about is not feeling like it or not having the energy to do it today, right? It's, oh, I'll have the energy tomorrow, but just today I don't have the energy, so I'm not gonna put forth 100% effort. So let's understand what these subjective experiences in the mind actually mean in your brain. When we say, I don't feel like it, which part of our being does that relate to? And it turns out that it's actually emotions, right? So you don't really notice that you don't have an emotion, right? It's kind of, I just don't feel like anything. You sort of feel emotionally neutral. But at the same time, you're also using the word, I don't feel like it. You're not saying, I think it's a bad idea, or I've made a logical calculation using the tools of AI available on the internet, and I have naturally concluded that I'm not going to do this task. That's not what happens. What happens is, I don't feel like it. And what is feeling? Feeling is an emotion. And so now the question kind of becomes, what determines your emotional state in response to a task, right? Because if we don't feel like it, we have to cultivate the right kind of emotion. Well, how do we do that? So I'll give you all a scenario, okay? Let's say that I go out with my friends for dinner, and then they say afterward, okay, let's go dancing. Or maybe I'm sitting there in the restaurant, and a dance floor opens up in the middle of a restaurant. Now, what do you imagine my emotional reaction to my friends getting up and starting to dance are? Well, that depends on you, right? So depending on who you are, you may say, wow, this is an amazing opportunity. I can't believe that they just opened up a dance floor. It's time to go boogie. Let's go. Or you could say, oh, crap. I'm not very good at dancing. I don't know how to dance. Now all my friends are on the dance floor. I'm sitting here awkward, alone. Oh, my God. So even though the scenario is exactly the same, our emotional response can change depending on our perception of self, okay? So I know it sounds kind of weird, but just hear me out. So depending on how I think about myself, so if I think of myself as I enjoy dancing or I am a good dancer, then my emotions when it comes to dancing will be positive in nature, exciting in nature. And if I think of myself as not a good dancer, I don't know how to dance, then my emotions will be negative and I won't feel like doing it. Literally, the difficulty of getting on the dance floor depends on the emotional response that I have. And the emotional response that I have depends on my sense of identity. But you will say, but Dr. K, hold on a second. It's not just my identity. It's not all in my head. I am objectively a bad dancer. Like, I never learned how to dance. So it's not that it's my ego. It's not my sense of identity. I literally do not know how to dance. Twitch, I don't know if you've met these people. These people piss me off. But these people who aren't good at stuff and can still do it 100%. You ever met these people, these fuckers? You know, they're like the people who, like, the first time you're, like, visiting some tribe in the Amazon and everyone in the Amazon starts dancing. Or I see these people when I'm going and doing, like, Indian dancing stuff like Garba or Navratri, if you'll ever seen this stuff. It's a lot of fun. So sometimes you'll have, like, when we go to this festival where there's a bunch of, like, literally thousands of Indian people dancing and stuff like that. And then I'll sometimes, like, take my friends who are Caucasian or of other ethnicities, Asian, African American, whatever. And then when I take these people there, there's two kinds of people. None of them know how to dance. They've never been here before. It's absolutely insane. But some of them are, like, super excited. It's like, even though I don't know how to literally do this skill, I'm excited to learn. And I'm going to put forth 100% effort. And they're the people who are like, I don't know how to do this. This makes me feel awkward. I am going to look like an idiot. Y'all are both going to look like idiots. But one of y'all is okay with it. And this is what I end up seeing is that out of the friends that I take, the people who are okay looking like idiots are the ones who do a good job, learn how to dance, and have more fun. So it's not about the objectivity of whether you have the skill or not. It's about your sense of identity and the emotion that that creates in response to that task. And if you're like me, because I'm the one that when I, that creates in response to that task. And if you're like me, because I'm the one that when I, go to things and I'm like learning new stuff, I have friends with me who are like, yay, let's learn. And I'm like, I feel like an idiot. I'm not going to do that. And I look at them with envy and jealousy. It's like, I wish I could do that. I wish I was willing to make myself look stupid to enjoy and engage with life. And then I would learn so much more too, because the other really frustrating thing about these people is that they like learn so many different things because they're living life to the fullest. We're going to teach you how to do that today. The second thing to understand about when you don't have maximal effort, you can't put forth maximal effort, is that you don't have the energy for it. So now we have to understand the science of arousal and what gives your body energy, okay? So we have this axis called the HPA axis, the hypothalamus pituitary adrenal axis, and this axis governs a lot of our energy and arousal in life. And so if we kind of think about it, the level of energy that we will kind of have when given a task fluctuates depending on our opinion of the task. So I know it sounds kind of crazy, but hear me out. Okay, so if we look at our energy level, what we tend to see is that our energy level goes like this, okay? And what this is essentially our level of stress. And what we sort of discover is that in order to have optimal energy for a particular task, you need a medium level of stress. This is something that we call eustress. Now, if a task is not stressful enough, i.e. down here, the stress level is really low, then our energy level is low. This is what we call being bored, right? So doing paperwork is not stressful at all. It's just annoying. And even though it's easy to do, the level of effort required is super high because our energy level is naturally low. The task is easy, but our energy is so in the pits because it's a boring task that it ends up being hard to do. Next thing to understand is when our stress level is too high, our energy level actually tanks. And this is what we call being overwhelmed. So this is when our brain is basically saying, okay, this task is too much for us to handle. We won't be able to succeed in it. Therefore, we don't want to waste energy because it's too much, it's too big, it's too much, it's not going to work, it's going to be waste of energy. And our brain and body, if there's one thing that they're really good at, is being efficient. So this is when we feel overwhelmed, our mind is like, okay, I have 15,000 things to do, I don't know where to start, it's too much, and then internally, how do you feel when you're overwhelmed? You feel energetically drained. So this is the key thing to understand, is that when we're talking about putting forth effort, we need to have the right level of energy. But instead, oftentimes we are bored with the tasks, or we are overwhelmed by the tasks. And now the question kind of becomes, okay, well, what do we do about that, right? Because can we control how stressed out we are about something? It turns out, yes, we actually can. And that too has to do with your sense of identity. So let's understand this. So depending on how you feel about yourself or who you think you are, the level of stress a particular task evokes will be different. So if you think something is beneath you, then you will sort of start to think it's kind of boring, it's too easy. You'll sort of slip into the low stress category where everything in life is boring. And I used to be one of these kids, maybe you all know these kids, they're all over the internet, where they're like, yeah, I study quantum mechanics in my, free time, and, I'm a philosopher stoic, and, oh my god, Marxism, and I'm so much better than you, and, oh my god, I can't ever apply for a job, ever. Oh my god, it's so boring, I can't believe this. This is crazy. And those people don't, accomplish much, right? They're just, arguing with people on the internet. So it is our perception of the self, and if something feels too easy to us or feels boring, then our energy level will decrease. On the flip side, things that are overwhelming are not always overwhelming. When you first engage with something, it can feel overwhelming because you don't know how to do it. And that's what you'll tell yourself, right? If someone else was in this situation, they would be able to handle this. But I've never done this before. This is too much for me. I don't know how to handle this kind of thing. And so it is your perception of self which tells you that this is too much for you to handle. Because if you were different, or you said to yourself, you know what, even though I'm inexperienced with this, I have faith in who I am, this is a challenge that I can rise to, let me sort of give it my best shot. It all has to do with the perception of self. So this is the really insane thing. When it comes to unlocking 100% of your motivation, there is an energy component, which is governed by our arousal system in our HPA axis, and there is an emotional component, which is governed by our emotions. And furthermore, both of these things, our emotional response to a task, or how stressful or engaging a particular task is, how much it activates our HPA axis, actually has to do with your perception of self. Now, science can get us this far, but now the question becomes, okay, from a perception of self standpoint, what do we do about it, right? So if I believe I'm all of these things, do I need to go through 15 weeks of psychotherapy to change my identity? You can absolutely do that by all means. Some people will say, should I go do psychedelics and change who I am? I wouldn't recommend it, but some people have. This is where we turn to yoga. Because yoga and meditation in these Eastern traditions, they're the ones who sort of figured out from a subjective standpoint how you can change your sense of self. And here's the basic thing that they figured out. Essentially, all of the constructions that we have about our sense of self are constructions. They're not really who we are. They are intellectual conclusions or even emotional conclusions, but they're something that we build up about ourselves. And this is precisely why identity can change over time. If identity was fixed and physical and true, then it wouldn't be able to change over time, really. But if you sort of think about your identity is quite fluid based on the conclusions that you draw. And this is what we literally do in psychotherapy for people with trauma, is we will take an identity and we will literally cognitively reshape it into something else. It's absolutely possible. And we're going to teach y'all a very simple, powerful technique that if you do over time will change your sense of identity. This technique starts with this step. So the first thing to do is take a task where you can't put forth 100% effort. Once you have that task, you will notice one of two things. Either you don't have the energy or you don't feel like it. And now what I want you to do is take either of those things and try to trace that back to a sense of identity. You can do this with a piece of paper. You can pull something out right now, whatever you want to do. But start to think about, okay, what is it about me that creates this emotional response? So if I feel I don't have the energy to do it, or I don't feel like doing it, or I'm afraid to do it, or I'm anxious to do it, recognize that other people would not be quite as anxious as you are, right? Or even if they were anxious, they would be able to handle that anxiety in a different way. So what is it about you that makes you unable to engage in the task? And from an energy standpoint, the same is true. What about this is overwhelming for you? Or what about this is boring for you? And if you tunnel down, you'll discover some aspect of your identity. It doesn't have to be 100% correct. We're not going to worry about arguing with it or trying to convince it to be different. You may sort of slip into that. Don't do any of that. Just notice some aspect of myself. And this could be something as simple as, I'm not good at dancing. Very simple. I'm not good at. So the simpler it is, the easier it is. So make some statement about yourself. Now comes the fun part. So once you have that piece of your identity, what I want you to do is sit up straight. So your spine needs to be absolutely straight. Spine is straight, neck is straight, head is straight. So if you want to, one of the things that you can do is imagine that there is like a string or a rope at the top of your head, and you're kind of pulling up on that string, and imagine what it would do to your spine. That's how you can sit up straight, okay? So you want your spine, neck, and head to be 100% straight. Now what I'm going to do is take a moment, take a deep breath. You can chant Om 3 times if you want to. That really helps a lot. So you can do 5 minutes of Om chanting for this practice. That's ideal. Y'all can check out Dr. K's guide or some of our other YouTube videos on instructions how to do that. But just use some kind of centering practice. Om chanting works really well. And then what we're going to do is look within yourself for that attribute of your identity, right? So notice your experience of this moment. What exists within you? What are you? You'll notice you have certain physical sensations. You may notice your breath. You may notice sensory stimuli. Then you may notice thoughts and emotion. But thoughts are just thoughts. They're not real things. They're like literally thoughts, right? So I can think of a unicorn. It doesn't make the unicorn real. A thought is an abstraction. It's some not reality thing. It is a construction of the mind. And you may have understood this very simply. If you thought you left your keys in this particular drawer, but then you open it up and the keys aren't there. Oh no, thoughts are not reality. So if you, by all means, you can notice thoughts. There's no problem with noticing thoughts. In fact, we want you to, but notice what actually exists. And as you just notice what actually exists, look for that aspect of identity within you in this moment. So if all you have is this 60 seconds, could you determine from your experience in this moment that this thing is true? Is this a real thing within you? And some of y'all will get tripped up because you'll start thinking about it. But as we already said, thinking is not real, right? Sometimes it mirrors reality, but thinking is not a real thing. It's just what we think. And we sort of know that people can experience psychosis, which literally means they think particular thoughts which they believe are real, which are distorted from reality. Thoughts are not reality. And so as you look in yourself, look for this attribute of your identity. And what you will discover is it is not there, because all aspects of your identity are abstractions, are conclusions. And as you sort of look for this part of yourself, I'm not good at dancing. I'm neither not good at dancing or not good at dancing. Or even if I'm not good at dancing, it's simply because I haven't learned yet, right? This vessel has not been trained. So be it. And then as you cannot find this thing within you, take a deep breath in, deep breath out, and let that attribute of your identity go. Just let it go. It's something I believed about myself, but it isn't true in this moment. So I'm going to go ahead and let it go. And as you do this practice over an extended period of time, and you take these attributes of your identity and you start melting them away, this is where someone would say you will unlock your true potential, right? You will be able to accomplish things beyond your wildest dreams. And that was true for me. So the big difference between failing out of college and training and teaching at Harvard Medical School was a change in my sense of identity, because I used to think I was a smart kid, and then I realized I am what I am. I don't know if it's smart. I don't know if it's stupid. I'm just going to focus on learning. I'm going to focus on becoming the best that I can, the best person on the planet on understanding the science of complementary and alternative medicine, understanding the science of meditation and yoga and herbal medicines. And then suddenly, that attitude is what allowed me to rise to the top. And so this is where sometimes someone would say, oh, this will allow you to accomplish your full potential. It's not going to do that. We're not here to have you accomplish a damn thing. We're here not for your accomplishments, but to let you put forth 100% effort. And in order to do that, you have to let go of who you are. And then this vessel will have more energy and the right kind of emotions to rise to the task. Today, we're going to talk about how to boost your resistance to dopamine. The basic struggle that most of us have today is that we should be doing some things, like studying or working on our resume or exercising, but our brain wants to do something else. It wants to do dopaminergic things, like play video games, watch pornography, doom scroll, take your pick of technological addiction. And the problem is that we struggle to control this part of our brain, but that doesn't work. because the part of your brain that wants these dopaminergic activities actually is the part of your brain that controls you. So this is sort of best described by this old Soviet Russian meme. So I don't know if y'all have heard this, but you know, these memes back in the day about
in Soviet Russia, you do not watch television. Television watches you.
So in our brain, the way that this kind of works is in Soviet Russia or in the current digital age, you do not control dopamine. Dopamine controls you. I want to take a moment to thank the sponsor of today's video, Babbel. Babbel is the top language learning app worldwide, and I really love it because I'm actually learning Spanish after I've been using it for about 2 months. So right now, for example, I'm learning common conversational phrases that I can string together to actually have a conversation, like dos veces a la semana, which means twice a week, or tres veces al mes, which means 3 times a month. And that's what I really love about the app, is they make learning very, very easy and accessible. And they use certain scientific methods that actually have you being the most proficient in the shortest amount of time. So I can't recommend Babbel enough. And it's awesome that they're giving us 60% off of their subscription if you check out the link in the description below. So thank you to Babbel for keeping mental health content on the internet free and actually teaching human beings how to communicate with each other. So we have to understand this. So you have one part of your brain called the nucleus accumbens. And when we're talking about dopamine, this is the part of our brain that we're talking about. So the nucleus accumbens basically generates motivation for us. And the way that it does that is through using dopamine as a signal. So when we get motivated towards something and we engage in that behavior, we get this triggering of dopamine, which gives us a sense of pleasure and results in behavioral reinforcement. The problem is that you can't really directly control this circuit, because this circuit is what generates your wants and motivations. So you can't kind of motivate yourself to not be motivated by pleasurable things, if that kind of makes sense. It's the part of your brain that generates your motivation. Instead, what we need to do is utilize the other parts of our brain to reduce the power of our nucleus accumbens. So when it comes to a behavioral action, there's the motivational drive from the nucleus accumbens, but then there are all these other parts of our brain that influence that motivational drive. And this is sort of what I've learned as an addiction psychiatrist. This is kind of our bread and butter, is that we work with people whose nucleus accumbens and dopaminergic circuitry is in full control of their brain. So we have people who will do things like pick up a bottle of beer, let's say, and the moment I get my first sip, even though there are parts of my brain that are screaming at me, put it down, put it down, put it down. You can't control it. You're going to get divorced. You're going to get fired. You're going to get thrown in jail. Your whole brain is screaming at you, but you cannot control it. Because once the nucleus accumbens gets a taste of that alcohol, you lose all control. So let's start with the nucleus accumbens, okay? So the first thing is that our nucleus accumbens has this pile of dopamine in it, and let's just go over a quick overview of kind of what the nucleus accumbens does. So anytime we engage in an action, depending on what the results of that action are, we will get a release of dopamine, and then this dopamine results in pleasure. Now, when we receive pleasure from this action, we are going to go back and we are going to reinforce the action. Once we do this, then this will create a motivation to engage in the action again, okay? So basically, there's some kind of initial experience with something, which results in dopamine and pleasure, which then creates behavioral reinforcement and improves motivation. So the first thing that we're going to talk about is how things like dopamine detox actually move us in the wrong direction. So in order to do what we actually want a large amount of dopamine available in our brain. So I know that sounds very contrary to popular thinking, but let's take a quick look at some research on it. Here is a study that looks at rats and dopamine depletion. So what we've got here is we have lever presses, which is the action, and we have 2 kinds of rats. We have our control rats, and what we sort of see is that the control rats over time will engage in lots of lever presses. And then we also have something called dopamine depleted rats. And what we tend to see is that when you get rid of dopamine in the brain, you actually engage in less and less action. So the nucleus accumbens dopamine and regulation of effort in food-seeking behavior. Implications for studies of natural motivation, psychiatry, and drug abuse. Now here's the sentence that we're going to focus on. Accumbens dopamine, that's DA, may be important for enabling rats to overcome behavioral constraints such as work-related response costs, and may be critical for behavioral organization and conditioning processes that enable animals to engage in vigorous responses, such as barrier climbing, or emit large numbers of responses. Okay, so this is kind of complicated, but let me explain what this means. This basically says the more dopamine we have, the easier it is to engage in something called sustained effort. Now, this may sound kind of weird, but let's understand this, okay? If you look at our body, this is what happens. We wake up and we've got a ton of dopamine. And then our body has this system called homeostasis. And so what this means is if we engage in some kind of action, right? So let's take an action. And we've got a ton of dopamine. What this means is that if we engage in an action, we've got a lot of dopamine comes out because we've got a ton of it, right? So our brain is just like the way you are with your bank account, where if you've got a bunch of money, you can afford to spend some because you've got a bunch left. So after we engage in some kind of action, we lose some dopamine, but we kind of spend dopamine. And then the action, remember, the more dopamine we release, this action gets reinforced, okay? So this is totally fine. So as we use some dopamine, that's fine. We have some left. We can take another action, and we'll deplete some more dopamine, right? Totally fine. And then eventually what happens is we run out of dopamine. And once we run out of dopamine, then we have a slight problem because now our bank account is empty. So now in order to get dopamine out, right, now that we've squeezed the lemon dry, we need to engage in highly dopaminergic activities. So now that our reserve of dopamine has run out, we need something. So think about it like a lemon that you're squeezing the juice out of, right? So the more you squeeze, at the very beginning, you can squeeze very little and you can get a lot of juice out. But at the very end, you need something very, very powerful to squeeze out the remaining juice. So the more dopaminergic the activity, the less dopamine you need to engage in the activity. So when we look at things like video games, these are highly dopaminergic. And I don't know if this kind of makes sense to you, but when you feel really tired and you don't feel motivated and you don't feel like doing anything, when you're exhausted and you don't want to have fun, you're just kind of sitting around doing nothing, what are the only actions that you can take? What are the actions that are the easiest to take? The lower your energy level is, the easier it is to engage in dopaminergic activities, because these will squeeze out the last bit of dopamine that is left in your brain, because they're very powerful pulls of dopamine. Now, if we engage in actions like video games, let's go down here. So if we engage in, let's say we start out our day, and we engage in an action like a video game. Now remember, this is a powerful squeeze. So now we have a full lemon, and we are squeezing very tightly. What's going to happen to our dopaminergic signal? We're going to actually empty our whole swath of dopamine, because we've got a full lemon and we have a powerful squeeze. And then we have no dopamine left over for other things. This is what this rat study essentially shows, that if you want to engage in sustained effort with low rewards, we need to have a lot of dopamine in reserve, okay? So this is something that a lot of people don't get. But what we really need to do is understand that the moment you engage in a high dopaminergic activity at the beginning of the day, you're going to exhaust all your dopamine, and you literally will have nothing left for the sustained effort of the things that you want to do. And y'all may have noticed this in your own life, right? So when you wake up and you play video games for 6 hours between 8 a.m. and 2 p.m., how motivated are you at the end of that time? And then flip it around. Let's say we wake up in the morning and we work for 4 hours. How motivated are you? How much video games can you play after 4 hours of work? So this is the first important thing to understand. We do not want to get rid of our dopamine. We actually want a high level of dopamine, so that when we engage in low dopaminergic activities, we still get a strong dopamine response. And as we get a strong dopamine response, right, because there's a lot of dopamine in our brains, we are going to reinforce the action and increase our motivation to engage in the action. So the TLDR for this is that dopamine isn't bad. It's actually what causes behavioral reinforcement. And this is why it is very important to do productive stuff first thing in the morning. So do not even pick up your phone for 1 hour after you get up. Wake up and start doing something, anything. Try to avoid technology usage, or especially the dopaminergic technology usage, for at least 4 hours, ideally, at the beginning of the day. But don't touch your phone for 1 hour. As you do this, you will have lots of dopamine, and then you will be able to engage literally in sustained effort, right? So let's go back to this. So this is an experiment where we have lab chow, which is like crappy food, okay? That is very, very easy to access. And then what the rat can do is jump up here and then end up eating this tasty chow. So this is like better chow, but requires more effort. And when we have a dopamine intact mouse, what we find is the mouse goes over here, jumps on here, and eats the tasty chow, okay? So this is harder to get. And then what happens is if we have a dopamine depleted rat, the rat is too lazy to even get the thing that is good for it that it likes more. And this is a beautiful example of what goes on in most people's lives. We know that there are things that we should end up doing, but we are too lazy to do them. And every time we do them, we're like, damn, this was really great. I'm so glad I did this. And it turns out that the reason that we can't engage in the stuff that is good for us is actually because we're depleted in dopamine. So conserve your dopamine and try to use it at the very beginning of the day in whatever productive activities you have. The cool thing is that, kind of going back to our iPad drawing, what we see is that any action, even something like cleaning your room, if we have a large reserve of dopamine, will generate dopamine and behavioral reinforcement. So let's talk about our second part of the brain. So here's the nucleus accumbens, and now we're going to talk about the amygdala and the limbic system. So this system is very important for dopamine vulnerability. So the more negative emotion we are dealing with, the more vulnerable we are to dopaminergic signals from the nucleus accumbens. So these two parts of the brain talk to each other a lot. There are a lot of connections between the nucleus accumbens and the amygdala. So if you sort of think about it, this kind of makes sense, right? The worse we feel, if I'm feeling depressed, if I'm feeling anxious, I'm more vulnerable to dopaminergic activities. Because what we know is that dopamine basically shuts off negative emotion. And negative emotion induces cravings for dopamine because we feel bad when we have negative emotions, right? And if we feel bad when we have negative emotions, how does our brain know how to make ourselves feel better? That's right, we have this thing called dopamine. And if we release dopamine, we will induce more pleasure. So what do we see as in psychiatry, especially with things like addiction psychiatry? So what we tend to find is that people who are addicted tend to have a lot of negative pent-up emotions. And as long as you have negative pent-up emotions, your vulnerability to dopamine signals will increase. On the converse side, when we do things like psychotherapy and we end up reducing our negative emotion, our resistance to dopaminergic signals actually improves. So what we really want to do, if y'all are struggling to control your motivation and you're not motivated to do what you should really start to work on your negative emotions. So we can do all kinds of emotional processing activities. This can be things like therapy or journaling, meditation, right? And some of y'all may be saying, okay, so Dr. K, are you just saying that I should journal and meditate and go to therapy? Oh my God, you've said that a million times. Oh my God. Yes, but this is the main thing to understand. It's not about engaging these activities because they're good for you, right? So this is, once again, we'll get to value generation in a second. But the thing to understand is that if you want to be able to control your dopamine circuitry, you have to understand what the inputs are. And understand that the more depressed you are, the more anxious you are, the more you will wind up addicted to dopaminergic stuff. So you must deal with those negative emotions. And the cool thing is that as you start dealing with these negative emotions, and you can do something as simple as taking a walk, right? You can just go for a walk for about an hour, and a lot of these negative emotions will start to process themselves automatically. As you go through this stuff, you will be amazed at how much you are able to resist the dopaminergic impulse. As long as your emotions get taken care of, you go for 3 walks a week for 1 hour a week. 1 hour a day, right? So you do that 3 times, and you'll be amazed that you'll be 20% more resistant to the effects of dopaminergic activities. The next circuit that we're going to talk about is the prefrontal cortex. So the prefrontal cortex is part of our frontal lobes, and our frontal lobes are what generate things like willpower, right? So when we do things like meditate, the frontal lobes are basically what control the other parts of our brain. So if you're feeling really, really emotional and there's this voice in your brain that says, get it together, buddy, let's calm down, we need to focus. Or if you're trying to study. And so your brain is like, instead of getting distracted, let's focus. That's all done by your frontal lobes. But that's hard, right? And the one thing that we're going to focus on today, we're not going to do hard things. We're going to teach you easy things to improve your resistance to dopamine. So the other thing that the prefrontal cortex does is generate value assessments. So anytime you're thinking about doing an action, your brain has some idea of what the action is worth, right? What the value of the action is. For example, when we have something like studying or gaming, each of these have a value. And now we may think that the value of studying is greater than the value of gaming, but if on a given day you choose to game or you lose control and you end up gaming instead of studying, what that literally means is that the value generated by gaming in this subconscious part of your brain, it's not intellectual. This is what it's actually observed, okay? This is some weird subconscious part. It is doing a subconscious calculation about the value of gaming versus the value of studying. And this is literally what drives our behavior, the result of the subconscious action. And this subconscious value assessment is done by the prefrontal cortex. So what we need to do is do a conscious value assessment. And there's one really, really simple way to do that. So this isn't something like, I know this, you may think, okay, like, I just think about it, I know studying's better, like, I know that, like, but I just can't motivate myself. No, 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 you don't understand. If you are motivated to not study, that means that your subconscious value judgment is going to the nucleus accumbens and telling it to game instead of study. That's literally what's happening. And there are some moments, even if you sort of think about it, right? So if we kind of, and this is a constantly ongoing process. So why do we study one day before the test? Because our subconscious value judgment is today we can game, tomorrow we can game, on day 3 we can game, on day 4 we can game, and then the subconscious value judgment changes on Thursday morning when you wake up and you have a final exam on Friday. Now the subconscious value judgment changes, and if you sort of stop and examine yourself, you'll see this. Now you start to panic. Now the consequences are big. Now it becomes very important to start studying. The subconscious value judgment has changed. So this is what's really cool. We can take that last-minute panic, we can take that last-minute motivation, and we can bring it up a couple of days. We can generate that motivation earlier if we do a conscious value assessment. And there's one really simple way to start doing this. We use this a ton in addiction psychiatry. It works really well. It's called play the tape through to the end. This is what we're going to do. We're going to play the tape through to the end, okay? So what does this mean? This means that you should sit down with a piece of paper. You can't do it in your head, because in your head, your mind will jump to all kinds of stuff. You have to sit down, ideally with a piece of paper. Don't use a technological device. And walk through the actions that you're going to take and what the consequences of those actions are going to be like. So if I wake up at 8 a.m. and I study, what's going to happen next? What's going to happen at 9 a.m.? What's going to happen at 10 a.m.? What's going to happen at 11 a.m.? And then how am I going to feel at 5 p.m.? And I study for at least 2 or 3 hours. Versus if I game right now, what's going to happen at 9 a.m.? What's going to happen at 10 a.m.? How am I going to feel at 5 p.m.? Your mind will tell you, oh, we'll do it later. But stop and really play the tape through to the end. Are you going to do it later? When? What's actually going to happen? And when you force your mind to slow down and you play the tape through to the end, if I start drinking today, what's actually going to happen? What do I know is going to happen? Even though this may not instantly boost your willpower, you may sort of find that at the end of this exercise, you end up gaming anyway. And that's actually okay. Because what we've done is change your subconscious thinking a little bit. Now, the price of gaming, there's a part of you that feels a little bit more guilty at the end of this exercise, right? You end up gaming anyway, but it's not quite as mindless as it used to be. You're like, holy shit, I really shouldn't do this, but okay, fine, whatever. Today is fine. So even that is a small subconscious shift. And as you play the tape through to the end over and over and over again, your value assessment will change, okay? So the next thing we're going to talk about is super fascinating, and this is the hippocampus. So the hippocampus is our memory circuit. This is where our memories live. So there's one thing that's really important to understand. When the hippocampus has a strong influence on the nucleus accumbens, but there are some things that the hippocampus loves and some things that the hippocampus hates. So this is important to remember. The hippocampus values novelty. So if something is new for you, it will actually trigger a stronger motivational impulse. So if you are trying to do something like study, or let's take the case of exercise, and it is hard for you to exercise. If you are trying to exercise instead of playing video games, and you've tried to exercise before, the hippocampus will say, hey, we've tried this before, it doesn't work well, we don't really enjoy exercise, so let's end up gaming. If you want to start exercising, the key thing that you need to do is add novelty to the mix. So if you try a different kind of exercise, let's go to Pilates, let's go to yoga, let's go to Tai Chi, let's work out with friends, let's do high intensity interval training, let's join this workout group with dudes or with women or whatever. The more novelty you can add, that if you're trying to do something again, the more it will increase your motivation and trigger that sort of positive dopamine response. So if you failed at trying to do something like going to the gym to work out, I've tried going to the gym, I've tried going to the gym, utilize your hippocampus circuitry and just try something new. The more different it is, the easier it will be to try. And this is something that the gaming industry understands very well, right? They understand that games are old, and old games are boring. And how do we encourage people to play this game again? We add new stuff, we add new stuff, we add new stuff. So novelty triggers motivation. So anything that you're trying to do, whether it's cooking, exercising, studying, whatever, try to add some novelty to the mix and it will be easier to do. The next circuit we're going to talk about is actually the opioid circuit. So this involves the mu receptor and the kappa receptor. So this is interesting because when we're all talking about dopamine, we're obsessed with dopamine, motivation, pleasure, all this kind of stuff. But remember that the whole brain works as a circuit. Things are connected, right? And it turns out that the endogenous opioids and the opioid receptors are very powerful influencers of our pleasure circuitry. And it turns out that pain and pleasure are actually very tightly linked and control one another, literally. So I'll give you all a simple example of this. Let's say that you're playing a video game and it's a stomp. So when you stomp in a video game, how fun is it? Chances are it's less fun than if the game was very, very hard, right? If I'm losing at the beginning and then my team makes a comeback, the dopamine rush I get is huge. So this is something very important to understand, that pain correlates with pleasure. So as we can increase the pain from a particular activity, the pleasure that we will get from that activity actually increases. So you can sort of notice this as well when we kind of think a little bit about like things like working out, right? So if we half-ass when we work out, like if we half-ass it and it's just a lot of pain and there's not, what ends up happening is we avoid the pain, and when you half-ass working out, you actually avoid the pain, minimize the pain, and then it turns out that we have less reinforcement. But instead, if we sort of think about working out, right, let's say I'm like doing a bench press or something like that, and I can do 6 reps of the bench press without too much problem, but it's in that 7th rep and that 8th rep that I sort of feel that burn. This is what Arnold Schwarzenegger calls the pump, right? As I feel that pump, those are the hard ones, and those are the ones that make me feel really good at the end of it. So it's that last painful part that actually positively reinforces our behavior. So this is where we've got to be super careful, because a lot of times when we are engaging in dopaminergic activities or our nucleus accumbens is running the show, we have a ton of avoidance of pain. And instead what we want to try to do is add some pain to the mix to influence our dopaminergic circuitry. We also have really interesting evidence of this, which is that if you want to reduce cravings, we have a medication called naltrexone. And what naltrexone actually does is blocks some of these opioid receptors, or partially blocks them. It's not a full blockade. And so it kind of interferes with our ability to engage in pleasure from dopaminergic activities. Now, I know that's not exactly what we're talking about here, but we certainly know from things like naltrexone that the opioid receptors and the opioid system and the dopaminergic system, the nucleus accumbens, are very tightly linked. So the way that we want to utilize our opioid system is, first of all, don't retreat from pain. We want the right amount of pain. We want a balance of pain. So we want something that is moderately painful or mildly painful, which will make that we can still complete. So we don't want to have pain to the point of stopping the activity, right? So if something is too painful, our brain will actually say this is not worth it. So this is where I think working out is really like perfect, and people sort of figured this out, right? They said you should do the weight that makes you feel the burn in the 7th rep, the 8th rep. The last couple reps should be painful, but you should be able to do it. And that's literally what we're kind of shooting for. So you want to add some pain to the mix, which will increase your resistance to the dopamine system. And this is something that I think people like David Goggins has turned this into a lifestyle, right? So he's somehow figured out a way to use pain to increase his motivation, is what I've heard. I've never talked to the guy. And so it's actually very consistent with our understanding of neuroscience. So let's summarize. The problem is that the nucleus accumbens generates motivation. And once it generates motivation, that's what we want to do, right? This is what creates our want. Now, this is a problem because if we have created a want, then it's very hard to control it. And our whole life is a struggle about wanting to want different things. So instead, what we're going to do, since we can't create the wants that we want, right? So you don't get to pick what your desires are. Instead, what we're going to do is utilize other circuits of the brain to weaken the strength of our nucleus accumbens, to weaken the ability of the nucleus accumbens to control our behaviors. And we're going to use other circuits of the brain. We're going to use amygdala, because our amygdala makes us vulnerable to dopamine. We're going to use our prefrontal cortex and change the way that we consciously demonstrate value. We're also going to use our mu receptor and opioid system, because if we can add some pain into the mix, it will change the way that we experience pleasure. We're also going to use our hippocampus to add novelty to the mix. And so if you have some kind of goal that you don't feel motivated to do, the more novel you can make it, the more your motivation will increase. And lastly, we're going to be super careful about our dopamine reserves. And we're going to remember that in order to exhibit sustained effort, we require dopamine. We need lots of reserves of dopamine. And the more dopamine you have, the easier it is to release a higher amount of dopamine for a less pleasurable activity. And the biggest mistake that you can make is depleting your dopamine at the beginning of the day. Because then what you need is you need something very, very dopaminergic to squeeze the remainder of the juice out. So the last thing that I want to share with y'all is that if we look at the brain, there's one very fundamental principle. One part of the brain cannot control itself. So if we sort of think about, let's say we get emotional. The part of our brain that experiences emotion can't restrain itself. We need other parts of the brain to control our emotional circuitry, right? So we'll use something like our frontal lobes, and we'll say, hey, bro, you need to calm down, or hey, girl, you need to calm down. I need to take a step back. I need to take a deep breath. That's your frontal lobes controlling your amygdala and your limbic system. So then the question becomes, how do we control our very motivational circuitry? And the problem is that we've gotten so obsessed with willpower and habits and things like that, that we've stopped looking at the inputs to our motivational circuitry. And once you understand the inputs to your motivational circuitry, what you will discover is that you can control your motivational circuitry by using these other things. So definitely give this a shot and let us know how it works for you.